Welcome to Right Talk with Mike Lee. Tonight I'm sitting here alone by myself right now. I guess as I've checked in, I'll take my Greg Stemmick inspired hat off. I'll take my Kevin Lee inspired glasses off because he said it doesn't allow me to fit in and no one's going to emulate me as though I care. Tonight I have a very special guest, a person that's very special to me. And it's really an inspiration to me. It's really one of the reasons, maybe one of the reasons I'm still here today. It is my better half. And I'd like to discuss with her and with you, share with you some of the ideas and experiences that we've had with one another in terms of learning and growth. Not just as a couple, but also as politically. She should be sitting down with us shortly. Her name is Nathalene Matthews-Lee. She insisted on maintaining her Matthews name. And we'll just talk about some things that are kind of personal to us, but may be enlightening to you also.
Hello. How's everybody doing today?
Isn't that a better half? Makes me want to put my sunglasses back on so I won't look so bad.
Uh-oh.
Like Ray Charles, huh? Anyway. Nathalene?
Yes, my dear.
We've been knowing each other since forever, right?
Forever.
At least know of each other. Let's see, my cousin was married to your aunt, right?
That's right, that's right.
And I didn't know your aunt was your aunt. I thought your aunt was actually your sister.
That's right. I'm the baby niece of the family, so.
And your mom went to school with my sister.
That's right.
And grew up in the black capital of the world, as I call it, Lincoln Heights, Ohio.
Yes.
Now, politically speaking, you've been a lifelong Democrat until you ran into me, so to speak, right?
That's right. Democrat my entire life until what, about 2 years ago, I guess?
Were you raised that way? How'd it happen?
Yeah, I mean, it's just like most of our people, it's just sort of expected. You know, everybody in your family is Democratic, you learn to vote Democratic, and that's just the way it is. And that's the way I was for the majority of my life till about 2 years ago.
And then you got paid, huh?
I guess you could say
and
that.
Found out you was being pimped by the government?
That's right.
And found out you were paying for people who didn't want to work?
I found out the more money I made, the less money I made. That's just the way it is, I guess.
Well, you know, to me, it was kind of simple because I first worked in campaigns with Bill Oliver in Mickey Leland's for Congress campaign back in 1982. Mm-hmm. And we were talking, and he said, I said, well, real, that's like, you just want to take from the rich and give to the poor. If you take from the rich and give to the poor, what you're going to do is just create some more poor people.
That's right.
And what's wrong with work? That was always my thing.
Well, you know what you and I always talk about. With my grandparents and your parents, they worked hard. They were just hard-working people. They never expected anybody to give them anything. They came from a poor background.
And welfare
they
wasn't
just
anathema.
stepped out on faith and decided, you know, I want something better for my family, so I'm just going to leave where I am because I know I can't get what I need there. And they heard about jobs in other places, so they just stepped out there and took a chance.
Well, you know, my parents were Mississippi sharecroppers. And I had 8 brothers, and I had 7 brothers and 3 sisters. There were 11 of us. And there were a bunch of people at your grandma's house too, wasn't it, around the corner? Yeah,
8 children, and my mom had me when she was young, so that made 9 because I lived with my grandparents till I was 5.
Okay. Because, you know, where we grew up, There were, to me, some very inspirational and very visionary people. I guess the one I admired the most was probably Mr. Holloway. You remember Mr. Holloway?
Oh, yeah, of course.
Mr. Holloway was my Pee Wee basketball coach. He was a hell of a guy. He had I think he had a PhD from he went to Philander Smith, started the Pee Wee basketball team probably for his son Wendy and stuff like that. And then Lofeld lived down the street from Wendy. And Lofeld's a hell of an athlete. And Mr. Lofeld, I think, was an assistant principal at Hughes. So where we lived up on Prairie was like the, quote, better part of the neighborhood. And where y'all lived on Matthews Drive, you had brick homes also, where your grandfather lived.
Right.
So because Lincoln Heights you had the upper sub and a lower sub. And kind of the upper sub was a little bit better.
Right.
And then in between, you had the Valley Homes, which is where a lot of people moved to before they moved to the upper sub, in houses in the upper sub. But we were in an all-black situation. We had all-black everything. I didn't see white people until I left Lincoln Heights or until I was, unless they were on TV. But the way Lincoln Heights and Woodlawn were divided, the dividing line between Lincoln Heights and Woodlawn was somewhere in the middle of my mama's house. So I went to Lincoln Heights School and played basketball on Lincoln Heights basketball team, but I played baseball on Woodlawn's baseball team. So in the summertime, I played baseball against the guys I played basketball with in the winter, which was kind of strange. But the baseball team I was on was coached by a guy named Bob Klotz, who's a great guy too. He and Mr. Holloway were kind of coaching rivals. And Bob was a white guy, white Jewish guy, German Jewish guy. And Timmy Hoyles and I were the only two blacks on the baseball team. When we joined, we were the only two.
Right.
And I joined, I didn't have a glove. Timmy had a glove. We had to figure it. I used his glove, and we didn't think about what he'd do when I had his glove.
When you're in the game at the same time.
But when I joined the team, I'm 5 years old. I go down to the baseball field, and this white guy comes out. Stand stall. He starts jumping this ball and bat out to this Army duffel bag, and a glove falls out. And I didn't have a glove, so I just went over and picked up a glove. I figured it was for me. And Sam says, little fella, if you wear that glove, you have to put this on. That was a chest protector. You got to put these on, the shin guards, and you got to wear this mask. So I became a catcher, because it was the only glove the team supplied. I later learned my nephew, Corbin, learned to play the violin because it was the only instrument that the band would supply. So maybe he got maybe some of my DNA escaped into his bad self.
Well, but I think that's the way it was for a lot of us. You know, our families couldn't afford all of the equipment that we needed to play sports or to be in a band, so we took whatever we could, but we made it. You know, we wanted it badly enough to just do whatever.
Well, I think, and then you and I had a common teacher too. You remember Miss Kelly?
Yeah, we think differently about Miss Kelly, but you can go ahead.
Oh, I like Miss
you
Kelly.
liked Miss Kelly. I did not like Miss Kelly.
Miss Kelly was the meanest teacher in the history of mankind.
Yes, she was.
And if Miss Kelly taught now, she'd be in jail, as my little brother Daryl likes to say. She'd have been in jail.
I think so.
She'd make you whoop yourself. I mean, she made Bernard Gray whoop himself. No, it was Curtis. I think it was Curtis Smith. She made him whip himself with a paddle.
That lady was frightening to me. I mean, you didn't mind having her, but she scared the heck out of me. I just didn't like her because I'm a lot quieter and just very shy. And I didn't go to Lincoln Heights School in the beginning of that year, of fourth grade. I came from a school in Hamilton where I had a very nice teacher. And then I get there to Lincoln Heights and I had Miss Kelly, and I was frightened of that lady. So I sat there real still, never moved, because I did not want her to say anything to me. But I learned a lot from her, I did. But the thing is that a lot of the things that I learned I already knew, because the school that I came from was a much better school. And that helped me. So I didn't have to get beat by Miss Kelly.
And Miss Kelly was Miss Kelly was past mean. I mean, she was talking about running a tight ship. I mean, that had to be the most quiet classroom in the history of Lincoln Heights.
And very clean. Nothing was out of place in her room. You remember that? Everything was spotless.
She probably failed more students than anybody in the history of Lincoln Heights.
It's probably true.
And she's a heck of a teacher, but I credit her, and I think about her often. And when I was in college, I found out what rest home she was in. I used to go visit. I actually go visit with her.
Mm-hmm.
I actually go visit with her when I was a student. You know, I was the only one crazy enough to go by her house on Short Matthews Drive. But whatever little discipline I may have academically,
Mm-hmm.
I attribute that to her.
I could see that. I can understand that.
But she wasn't mean.
But she wasn't the only one like that, though. I mean, if you think about it, we had several teachers who were like that. Not quite like Miss Kelly, but I remember Mr. Green. Now, Mr. Green was like that. Now, he didn't beat you to death or anything like that. But he was very, very strict. And one of the things that I remember most about the teachers when we were growing up is that they cared. They cared. And a lot of the teachers nowadays, they don't know how to do that. They don't care. And that's what helped us get out of that situation, because we had teachers who cared.
I had another teacher, my third grade teacher, Miss Snell. She was supposed to have been a substitute teacher, but the regular teacher never showed up. I think her name was supposed to be Miss Strange. And Miss Snell she claimed that I was a challenge. She said when dealing with me made her realize she needed to go back to school. I was kind of, may have been a little bit interesting when I was
Was?
Yeah, probably was, because I had, you know, in my family situation, I had two older brothers. Keevan is 18 months older than me. Greg was 3 years older than me. They were like terrorists. And growing up with them was not easy. I'm going to tell it, Keevan. He used to wrinkle up my clothes, you remember. And then come out the back room whistling. I started crying, and my mother wouldn't do anything. And these guys used to actually, it was like terror, for real. And when I grew up, after my baby brother Daryl was born, I think Keevan and Greg started terrorizing Daryl one day, and my big brother Frank said, "Leave that boy alone, that never happened again." But Daryl had some protection. I was just out there. I was like 2 and 3. I talked to Keevan yesterday. He said, "Mike, you 65 now?" I said, "Yeah." He says, "I remember when you was 3. I said, "I bet you do. I remember when I was 3 too. I was trying to get away from your behind." Really, more than anything else. But I grew up in a large family, had a lot of brothers and a lot of sisters. And my brother John, he was like the mark. If you want to do something good, try to do what John did. Mm-hmm. Don't do what Charlie did.
Stay away from that side of it.
Aim at John. You beat John, you'll be all right. I didn't realize who I was competing with, though, because my brother John was the first black person to graduate from the law school at the University of Miami. Mm-hmm. But, you know, I figured I could beat him, you know. And my best friend was Greg Stemrick. We became thick as thieves starting at about age 9 or 10. We started playing Pee Wee basketball. And, but we were alike in some strange ways. Like in Gage's family, Kenny was the John in his family.
Right.
So Gage and I, we had this thing in our head that if we beat Gage's brother Kenny was best friends with my brother Bobby. And our thing was, now they went to college, they went to divorce. And our thing is we just got to do better than them.
Right.
If we do better than them, we'd be pros. Because Gage used to talk about being a pro athlete. We was like 10, 11, 12, 13, staying out all night when we shouldn't have been staying out.
But what do you think made you think that way? I mean, because a lot of people around us, and you and I talk about these things all the time, a lot of people around us had no goals. They didn't want to do anything except stay there. So what do you think made you want to get out?
I always relied on Gage for he was like my common sense, and I was like his scholastic sense. And Gage was telling me a couple of years ago when I was home, he said, "Mike, the difference in us is we had goals." Mm-hmm. And for some reason, he thought we were leaders. I never looked at life like that. I was just a guy living. Mm-hmm. But I used to go to Sunday school a lot, and I used to admire Jesus. I thought Jesus was cool, I thought David was cool, and I thought Paul was cool. Because they had spirit, they had heart, especially David, he had heart. Because I was always the smallest guy on the baseball team, the smallest guy on the basketball team. And so I learned that if you had heart and smarts, you could do some things. Because I was able to get around my size, because I could see things. I was a pretty good athlete, I was just little.
Right.
But growing up with Gage and Lowfield and competing with those guys, and we get in fights, and Othell, my other best buddy, with the same birthday as mine, he claims. But he was born in Selma, Alabama, and I always tease him that he's a year older than me because they didn't count black people down there. But it's like we were all like a group, but like a band of brothers. And it's like, and then we had Mr. Holloway to kind of start us. He had to say, all for one for all for Lincoln Heights. I love Lincoln Heights. Yeah. And so we came up athletically, basketball-wise.
Right.
And we pushed each other. We used to fight and argue, just like people growing up. Yeah. But we always wanted to push each other to be better. Right. And we always pulled for one another in a lot of ways.
Right.
And we pushed each other. To me, it's like Gage and Lowfield competed against each other, but they loved each other. Each was trying to beat the other. And we all used to go one-on-one against each other. One-on-one, because Mr. Hiller used to make us play. At the end of basketball practice, make us play. World beater, that means you could foul, you could hit somebody, do anything.
Knock somebody
You play
out.
one-on-one whole court to 3, and the loser ran. So you didn't want to lose.
Right.
But this fight, we fight and go in the locker room, fight, argue, but then we come out. If you touch one of us, you might as well touch all 15 of us, because that's how it was.
Because you're going to protect each other, and that's what we did where we grew up. And just like in your family, where you all had the brains and all that, in my family, we were musical. And that was very important to me because, I had my Aunt Sharon and my Uncle Sonny, and they both, made records and things like that. And I remember, of course, my Uncle Charles Sperling, who passed away a couple of years ago, and he knew James Brown and people like that, and Roger and who's the
Roger Troutman?
Yeah, Roger Troutman and Bootsy Collins and people like
Junior
that.
McCants, all those guys.
And I grew up in such an enriched environment because I used to sit on the basement steps and listen to all these people make music. And how many people can say that? So even though we grew up in a supposedly poor neighborhood, it was so rich in so many ways because we loved each other and we were one big family, really, if you think about it.
Yeah, it's like I told you about the connection. My cousin was married to your aunt. And you had a lot of that. I didn't know people were related to each other like they were related, because I was related to the Crawfords. I don't know who you were related to.
Well, we just have a whole bunch of Matthews, like a whole bunch of Matthewses. So I don't know that we were related to any other family in Lincoln Heights.
But they were pretty. Ooh, Lord.
A lot of Matthews girls, a whole bunch.
That wasn't even right.
I'm the ugly duckling in the family.
I can see where they put you there under that kind of pressure. Now, in my family, it was a lot of brain. There was a little bit of brain power in my family. I'm not quite sure where it came from, because my mother, I'm not sure, could read. My dad used to walk around all the time with this Max Brand cowboy pitch novels in his back pocket. And I remember the first argument I remember my daddy and mama having. I was little. I was so little. I think Daddy had blown a whole paycheck on some encyclopedias. Now I can see Mama right now. Mom and Daddy fussing. I'm so little, I could walk in between arguments and see what they fussing about. Whatever they was fussing about was in this box. And so I go in the box, and in that box was encyclopedias. And my brother John had me trying to read that stuff before I even went to school. When I went to school, I could already tell time. Little things.
Right.
But it was a lot of, not pressure, it's just a lot of learning went on there. and you learned, after you learned to read, you know, you started debating and discussing things with people. We used to do this thing in the basement. We used to call it the basement.
Mm-hmm.
We used to go in the basement because it was cooler down there in the summer.
Right.
It's cold in the winter. But let's see, Kevin, Greg, me, Daryl, Bobby, Charlie, anybody come to the basement, you talk about stuff that you read, and you debate. I remember the first debate I had in my life. It was with my brother John about communism. This question was, how you know communism was bad?
How old were you?
Third grade, when everything happened. I'm in third grade. I figured out when I was in third grade, I want to be. My first choice was I want to be an astronaut because I want to be the first person on the moon, not the first black person, the first person. I didn't even have to come back. So I want to be an astronaut or an attorney. And the attorney idea came because I used to watch Perry Mason, and believe it or not, I used to fight the whole house, everybody, to watch Perry Mason. If I wanted to watch Perry Mason, they wanted to watch something else, I'd just raise holy hell until they just gave in, let me see Perry Mason.
Just let you watch it.
Because I thought it was, his doing was cool, and to me, I never thought, that's a white man right there. I didn't care about that. It was just, he's walking around talking a bunch of stuff, messing with Paul Drake and calling people. Paul, this is Mason. I mean, that's what he, and to this day, when I talk on the phone a lot of times,
Yes, you do.
people tell me, they say, you're
Yes,
the only
you
guy I
do.
know who introduces himself on the phone.
You do that. This is Mike Lee. And what I used to tell you, I know who you are.
Yeah, people
know
tell
your
me all the
voice.
time, this is Mike Lee. Like I don't know who I am. But that's what, maybe that's hangover from that. But I knew in third grade that I wanted to be an astronaut or a lawyer, which is a hell of a thing in 1960 in Lincoln Heights where we were.
Oh, yeah.
Had that kind of dream. I had already figured out that I wouldn't be out of school and I wouldn't be done until I was 25. So I'm 8, 9, 10, 11 years old. I'm looking, man, I'm sure we got on 25. This stuff is over with. But between that 8 and 25, oh boy, a whole lot of stuff happened. Babies you don't want. Acting crazy, playing, but the main thing we did was play ball. Gagey, Othell, Lofell, Reese, Gerald Williams, all these guys. Our main thing was sports because we thought that was the way out. Yeah. But then in 10th grade, that summer, Gagey shot up.
So everybody got a lot taller than
Everybody shot. Gagey shot up. Othell got a little taller. He's taller than me, and I wasn't growing. I said, this NBA thing is not going to work. I need to be about 6 feet tall. But the only short guy in the NBA then was Calvin Murphy. He was 5'9". He played at Niagara, but he could dunk. I couldn't do that. That wasn't what happened for me. So what I did was, I was always kind of a resourceful little guy. I find a way. I took I had my mama's signature was on something. My dad's signature was on something, and I traced their signatures on some transfer papers. I transferred myself. They didn't know I transferred.
I know. The
But I
audience didn't know that,
But I had to do that. Because ever since I was like 5, I had this strange independent streak. Even to my mom and my daddy, I would tell them, y'all my mom and my daddy, but you don't own me. You can't own people. I always had this crazy thing about I'm my own person. Which was may have been a little bit strange. My brother Charlie tells me, I love talking to him because he's done over 50 years in and out of the pen during my life, and I don't know him that well.
Right.
And one of the things Gagey tried to do, he said, Gagey called himself getting to know Charlie for me.
Right.
But Charlie tells me, he says, Mike, you're a little guy, you're strange. You always had this look on your face like you knew something nobody else knew. I was thinking, I probably did. Because I was thinking about stuff, because I had to deal with my terrorist brothers and figure out how to get around stuff.
Right.
But another interesting thing was, the guy who was principal of the high school, Mr. Starr, his parents lived across the street from my parents when I was itty bitty. And every day after I go out and play, I'd come out and play, come home, wash up, freshen up, and put a bow tie on, and go across the street and talk to Mr. and Miss Starr. And one time when I called myself going to skip class, Gay and I were going to skip class at Miss Simmerline. He called us and
Skip class right across the street
right across
from
the
the
street from
school.
Well, he's not that too
Had
bright.
to let you all know that.
But he doesn't know if he was going to give us swats. And I told Gay I'd go first, right? Because, you know, I go first. But it looked like to me he hit me a little harder than he hit Gay. And I was wondering, I said, why would the man hit me like that? Because I used to go around and sit and talk to his parents. So I talked to his parents across the street, put my bow tie on, go over there, and we talk till the sun go down. I'm 3. I'm going across the street and stuff. And then usually when we finish talking, before I go home, they give me a pack of chewing gum. Juicy fruit. 5 pieces in there. I get Keaton 1, get Greg 1. They still toying me. I couldn't get a piece.
Trying to bribe them.
I just want to get on the good side. I want to have an easy day. Because it wasn't always easy there. But there were always books around the house. I know when I was in law school, my first year, before I took my first law school exam, I found out my mama's house burned to the ground. And when I talked to my brother John shortly thereafter, first thing John said, man, all them books. And that's what I thought. I had a collection of African history and Caribbean literature books that would be worth good money now.
Yeah.
Some were about my Denison University, Miss Kelly, Miss Dr. Garrett. Talk about rough. Man, that's the hardest A I ever got in my life.
But you wanted it, so you're willing to do whatever it took to get it.
Yeah.
But then that's what you and I talk about all the time. It's like, because we talk at home. We talk like this all the time. That's why I'm on the show today, because this is what we do anyway. But it's like a lot of people just don't have grit. You know, I mean, it's one thing to have goals, but then it's another thing to have grit and really work hard and just, you know where you want to go and you're willing to do whatever it takes to get there. And that's what you and I talk about all the time, because we beat the odds. You know, where we came from, we had a lot of influential people, we really did. But then at the same time, we had a lot of people who just didn't expect us to do anything, didn't expect us to go anywhere, but to stay right there. And so many people we grew up with did just that. They just stayed right there. But we were determined to do more with our lives, you know, and that's what we did. And, you know, you've talked about your story, so I'll talk a little bit about my story. You know, I didn't get out right away, as you know. I stayed in that area and got married actually right out of high school and had 2 kids, and then ended up getting divorced. And that's when I went to college, because I had the brains, but for whatever reason, you know, I felt like, okay, you know, I'm a woman, I'm supposed to just get married and have babies. So that's what I did. You know, I got married, had 2 kids, got divorced, and then I said, okay, what am I gonna do? Either I can go on welfare or I can go to college. Welfare was not an option for me because I wasn't raised that way, because I watched my grandparents and my mom, who was a single parent, I watched them work hard their whole lives, you know, and welfare was not an option for me. So I enrolled in college and got my education, and my first job after I graduated from college paid like 3 times as much as the last job that I had before I went to school. So that's when you and I kind of met, when I think I had been going to school for like a year and a half, I think, when we met the first time around. And it's just, sometimes you just need things to drive you, to push you. And that's what a lot of people don't understand. They just kind of give up. I could have given up. You know, you could have given up. But we wanted something badly enough to just keep pushing no matter what. And no matter how tired I got, I didn't quit. I kept saying, I have 2 children to raise. I need to take care of my kids. I got to keep going. Giving up is not an option. And nobody gave me money to go to school. I didn't have any scholarships or anything, because I had been out of high school for like 5 years when I went to college. So I didn't have any financial aid. I borrowed the money. I worked a full-time job. I paid for a lot of it out of my pocket, and what I couldn't pay for, then I took out loans and I paid them back later. I have all my loans paid for, by the way, folks.
No,
I didn't leave them out there. I paid for all of them.
I was lucky. There's one other thing that was really a big influence on me was I mentioned Bob Klotz, because Bob was the baseball coach.
Mm-hmm.
He was rough too. Everybody's always rough on me, it seemed like. But it's something about me that the tougher you get on me, the tougher I get. And the one thing I know is when you want to do something in life, period, you really gotta want it. I wanted to go to college so bad I thought I would die before I would go. And I almost did, hit a tree at 50 miles an hour and walked away from it.
Yes, you did.
But you really have to want it. About 8 years ago, my brother Greg, I was talking to my brother Greg. He says, Michael, he says, a person has to want something for themselves. You can't want it for them.
Right.
They have to want it.
You could want it all day for them, but it's not going to happen unless they want it. So
You have to want it, and you have to work, and you have to just, there's something that I just believe in my heart. I believe that if you give all you got, all of it, don't leave anything.
right.
I believe God will break you off. I just believe that, because it's always happened for me. I went to, after I transferred to high schools, I went to Jensen University. I was on scholarship there. Managed to get through there, and then I went to law school at SMU, which was not supposed, which didn't have an affirmative action program, which is fine, because my thing has always been, I'm kind of like on the Jane Brown trip. I don't want nobody to give me nothing. Just open up the door, and I'll take it. And you have to have some fighting. You got to have some fight.
Right.
That's the one thing that I know that Gagey, myself, Lofield was just always super talented. He didn't have to try all that hard athletically. But you really have to fight.
Right.
And as I said, and it's part of my story, I had a couple of unwanted pregnancies. But when I was in high school, I told the world, and there's an interview in Cincinnati paper, I got a copy of it. My mama kept a copy of that thing for 60 years or something like that, 48 years. Mm-hmm. And I said, I'm going to Denison 4 years, I'm going to law school. I wasn't get, a lot of guys were talking that stuff, but I meant it, because when I was 8 years old, and when I calculated, the first calculation I made was getting to the moon. And Alan Shepard and John Glenn, those guys were in their early 30s when they were shooting, going up. Mm-hmm. And I looked at that, I said, when I'm in my early 30s, it'll be this year. I said, well, shoot, they'll be to the moon and back by then. And I was right, mm-hmm. because I used to like science, really be into science. And I remember the first time I was going to pick out law school, I just opened up a book and opened up the SMU. And it reminded me when I was in third grade, I used to get the weekly read in the summer. Mm-hmm. I got a weekly read that talked about building DFW Airport. It was going to be the biggest airport in the world, with space out there to put a rocket, just shoot rockets up and all that. And when I was going to Dallas, I'm flying, and it's like clicked on me. It's like kind of tripped me out. I said, hey, I remember reading about this in third grade. Because I don't forget much.
That's true.
Because around my house, you didn't forget too much. My baby brother, I got to tell this one, Daryl. I hope Daryl sees this show. I'm going to put you out there, bro. But my daddy asked Daryl to do something, and Daryl said, he told Daddy, I forgot. He said, Michael, Daddy whooped me. He said, I forgot anything since. I said, you better not. But around my house, there was quite a bit of brain power around it. Guys sitting around playing chess. We sit in the basement too quiet. Mama come downstairs, run us out. Get out of my house. And all we're doing is playing chess. Because we go down there, we play chess for hours. Sometimes my brother Keith and I, when I go home, we'll play. We might start at 9 o'clock at night. When we finish, the sun might be coming up. And that's called fun. Mm-hmm. And we drink whiskey sometimes.
Yeah, I know.
When I was in law school, I had a roommate, Jimmy. Jimmy and I used to play chess. Jimmy used to always say, You know, every now and then we smoke a little weed. I don't know a lot about him. It's a regular guy. And Jimmy say, Mike, you the only guy I seen that can drink and all that kind of stuff and play chess, because it has nothing to do with what I got to do. When I have to turn it on, I kind of like turn it on, in a sense. But it's because of, you know, my mom, and my mom always told me, try your best. And that, I guess that's why the game of chess appeals to my brothers and I, because Kevin plays, Daryl plays, I play, Charlie played, Greg played. I don't think Bobby would play, because Bobby hates to lose too bad. He's a real sore loser. One time we used to play Monopoly, and Bobby lost the Monopoly game, and Frank was teasing him, and Bobby put Frank's favorite pants on the lamp and caught the house on fire. So he doesn't take losing too well. But you know, my brothers and I, we, you know, the difficult thing, the challenging thing about life, I wish I was smarter, because I didn't really learn to appreciate my brothers and sisters until I started losing them. You know, it's like I didn't really get sense until I was about 25. Until I was about 25, I was like a little nut to me. I just do stuff. But no matter what happened, I always took care of my schoolwork, always. Because in my mama's house, that was the way to keep the pressure up off you. If you did your schoolwork and washed the dishes, cleaned the kitchen, you was good to go.
So let's talk a little bit about what we do now, what the two of us are into.
I try to do the impossible. I've always liked, right now I'm doing outreach and engagement for the Travis County Republican Party. And James Dickey, I should kill you. Because I just wanted to be a precinct chair.
That's right.
And I got correspondence saying I want to be a precinct chair.
That's right.
And I wrote James, and James says, well, Michael, you look like the kind of guy like a challenge. I thought to myself, I've asked him, what made you say that? He won't tell me. He's holding out on me. Yeah, you're holding out, James. And I just wonder what he saw. I sometimes wonder how people see me. I read somewhere how blessed we would be if we could see ourselves as others see us. Right. I wonder what other people see sometimes. Everybody's this guy crazy. Because you have to be, but see, my political education began in high school. Because when I was in high school, conservative meant that you were for slow and gradual change. Liberal meant you jump off a cliff and look and see what happens, And the conservative approach just made sense to me. It makes sense to me now.
But what else do you do? I mean, okay,
I'm a lawyer.
The outreach and engagement director for Travis County Republican Party.
I'm also a founding president of Austin MLK Association, where we're trying to, I want the community, I have a saying I say every show, I haven't said it yet, got to get it in now. What's good for the black community is good for the community. I say it to the most conservative of my friends. Right. And I believe in building relationships, positive relationships. I can build a positive relationship with a person in the Ku Klux Klan, I think. That's what I think. When I was in college, I was kind of crazy. I kind of wanted to go to a cross burning just to see because I'm curious. I just wonder what they do there. And I believe that ultimately what is important is our humanity. We all bleed red blood, but somehow when Trump says it's a racist state, even though it's true, anybody bleed blue blood, please send me an email or something. But my thing is I think it's important to build relationships and to try to do as much good for as many people as you can. That doesn't mean give them something, give them an opportunity.
Right.
Because I hear this thing, you know I'm tripping nowadays on equality. No one has told me what it means yet. I don't think they know. Now, my good friend Richard Dinkins, who's an appellate appeals court judge in Tennessee, I've been berating him for a couple of months, saying, tell me what equality is. He says he's been fighting for equality for 40 years. What the hell are you fighting for? There's no such thing as equal. If you want to be equal, go down and dunk like LeBron. You can't do it. You can't do it. So I think what you're entitled to, they say life living in pursuit of happiness, that's the pursuit to be the best you can be. You don't have a right to what Joe Blow has. Joe Blow may be more gifted than you. He may have better luck than you. There's always luck.
I think what helps keep us going also is that we don't put limits on ourselves, and we don't know, I don't think either one of us know what boundaries are. There's no such thing as boundaries as far as we're concerned.
But when you come to human relations, you have to understand that you're human first. You're human first. Yeah. And I'll say this, and I mean it. I think that most black people, I dare say most, not half, most, more than 50%, either afraid of or intimidated by white people. Not me. When my best friend was suspended for the NFL, and Pete Rozelle would approve his contract, and Gage and I had to go talk to Pete Rozelle and his boys up in New York, I told Gage, I said, hey, every time they pull out a degree, I'll pull out one. Okay, now we got that out the way. Now let's get to business. Because you don't scare me. You're just a man. Mm-hmm. There's a God that I believe in. I get mad at him sometimes too. I've cursed him in storms and stuff like that because something's kind of wrong with me sometimes. I get a little lost.
That would be true.
But it's the truth. But if God is with you, you don't need to fear any man. You don't.
But then we talk a lot also about not living in fear, because I think a lot of people limit themselves because they live in fear. They're afraid to try something. They're afraid to fail. And you and I talk about that all the time. And I see that a lot because where I work, which is at Job Corps. And most rewarding thing I've ever done in my life, because I get an opportunity to work with disadvantaged youth every day. And, you know, to try to help young people learn and to give them an opportunity that they wouldn't have before, and to try to instill in them that they can do things. You know, and I never try to tell them that you can do anything you want to, just like you were saying.
Don't lie.
You knew that you would not be a professional athlete. You knew that. But, you know, I always try to tell them, find your passion. Figure out what your passion is. And I can honestly say that because my profession is computers. You know, I'm a computer nerd. I'm a computer geek. I love that term. I don't care, you know, how other people perceive it. But then I ended up working in a totally different environment in Job Corps that has nothing to do with computers. I mean, I started out in the computer department, but I ended up being deputy center director that has nothing to do with technology other than using it on a daily basis. But I love what I do because young people look up to me and they can come to me and I can give them advice. And when I was growing up, I never would have thought that I would be in a position like that, because I'm a quiet person. And I heard you say this last week on the show where you said, you know, you talk a lot and you're the brains, you know, you think a lot, but that I'm a tinkerer, and that's true. You know, I'm most comfortable using my hands and doing things. That's why I produce this show, because I can be in the back room and not have to come out here, you know. Even though I don't feel nervous, I thought I would, but I really don't feel nervous, because it's like you and I are just talking like we do at home. So I'm very comfortable doing that. But I am the person who likes to use my hands and do things, and being able to talk to these young people. And it's rewarding to me, because most of the time I don't even have to say anything, because sometimes you just listen, and a lot of people don't know how to listen. You have to learn to listen. These young people need somebody to listen to them, and it's amazing to me how much they've gone through in their young lives. It's tough out there. It's really tough out there.
It's tough in Lincoln Heights.
It was, and that's what helps me be able to help them, because I know what I've gone through. And a lot of people at Job Corps, they come and go because maybe they have not had the life experiences that I've had that enable me to help these young people. But it's a good thing. Like today, you know, this young man, it was like three of us, we just kind of ganged up on him, you know, because he was just totally lost. But then we impart wisdom on these young people that by the time they walk out of the room, you can tell that they're thinking like, wow, you know, these people really care. And we have a lot of people at Job Corps who care, and that's what we need more people to do. And if you stop and think about it, that's what we had when we grew up.
Well, the thing, I think the one of the main thing was one more story I need to tell about Dr. Pollock at Denison. Because this was to me, it was very significant. There was at Denison University at the time in the 70s, whether or not to have a Black Studies program was a big deal. Mm-hmm. And this gentleman, Dr. Pollock, taught contemporary African politics and history. He was known for being the most so-called racist professor on the campus. I used to talk a lot of smack at Denison. And I told everyone, okay, I'm gonna get straight A's in my last semester here. And they told me, you can't get straight A's, you got Pollock. White people don't even get A's from Pollock. And I told them, you don't understand who I am. Because I always talk this mess, because it helps, it gets me pumped up, makes me work harder. And Dr. Pollock, Richard Dink was in the class with me. I said, Dink, we're not gonna argue with this man. Mm-hmm. Halfway through the semester, we didn't argue with him.
Right.
Halfway through the semester, he started inviting us to his house for Sunday dinner and to get drunk with him drinking whiskey sours. He made good whiskey sours. And he showed us these slides of his travels through Africa, like on the Great Trek, really trying to piss us off. And I kept hitting, Nate, don't get mad, just listen. And then on the final exam in there, you write 3 hours on one question. I always studied my professors when I was in school. Mm-hmm. And what it seemed like they would be really emotional about, what they really liked, I would always make sure I spent extra time studying for that because I knew they were going to ask a question because they want to know how you deal with it. Mm-hmm. And so Dr. Pollock asked 3 questions. I don't remember what the other 2 questions were. The one question I answered was about South Africa. And he when he's giving the instruction, he said, if anyone in this class should choose to answer a question about South Africa, I had A average at the time. I can guarantee you get no higher than a D in this class. I didn't even read the other questions. Because I knew he was coming. I said, I knew he was coming down that street. I said, come on down Bass Street. I'm waiting at the end. Mm-hmm. Okay, so I answered the question from the standpoint of competing claims to the land. I remember the answer right now. I know how I answered it. I answered that question, and I aced it, right? Mm-hmm. After I aced this class, he was running around campus looking for me. And everywhere I go, they say, man, Dr. Pollock looking for you. And I was hiding. I was playing hide and seek. I was playing, being Mike Lee, being crazy. You know, and that man came all the way up to my room, knocked on my door, and I pulled the chair. I heard it. I could hear him coming up because where my room was, I could hear people coming up. Mm-hmm. I pulled the chair right in front of the door, and I just watched that door vibrate. And then after I graduated, I got a call from Dean Gibbons when I was in law school. And he asked me, he says, Michael, what did you do, Dr. Pollock? And I had pulled a few antics while I was up there. I said, I don't know what you're talking about. Did you put some of this punching? Because I had done some things while I was there. And I said, no. Dean Gibbons, he says, well, Michael, you know, Dr. Pollock delayed his retirement for a year to teach in the Black Studies department. And he was a leading opponent of Black Studies. And so really what happened was, he had never really had any black student engage him and try to understand his point of view.
Because it sounds like everybody was afraid of him, so.
Man, he was bad news. He really was. And he tried to edge you on. Even though he'd have me and Dink over for Sunday dinner, getting drunk, showing us slides. Even though he did that, I knew on the final exam, I said, he's got to take one more plug at us. That's why I just studied South Africa. I read everything South Africa. Because I knew him, you know, because I knew where he had to come. Mm-hmm. I said, he's got to try to piss us off. Because that's how some people work. That's how he gets his jollies. And I got my jollies when I got the A. Mm-hmm. And had him run around campus looking for me. Because he wanted to write a recommendation for me to go to law school. But I was already tight. I didn't really need it. But I really should. My brother Darryl says I really shouldn't have played that game. No telling what I would have found out. Right?
Mm-hmm. But you took a chance.
But I was just being me.
And sometimes you have to take chances.
I was just being me.
So what are we doing as far as outreach and engagement? What types of things have we done? A lot. Like just
besides
this weekend.
TV show?
This weekend, for instance.
What do? We went to Bastrop.
Well, in the morning
to support
on
the
Friday.
trees.
In the morning on
Friday
Friday,
morning.
you went to Manor.
I went to Manor? Oh, yeah, I sure
you
did.
and Gabe.
Well, I don't know. I just go.
I have to keep track.
I went to Manor on Friday morning.
And then Friday evening.
Friday evening we went to Bastrop.
Right. And Latrice, our good friend Latrice Cook was honored.
So I went to support. We went to support her.
Right.
And then Saturday morning we went to.
We were in the parade.
We was in Austin's parade. And then we went to Austin's booth.
Right.
And then we went to Round Rock to their Juneteenth celebration. And then we tried to come back to Austin celebration, but it was closed.
Right.
Because I was ready to just...
And I was tempted to go to Hayes County to do theirs because I figured they were still going on, but I think we were both tired by then.
What's so bad is Saturday morning when I woke up, I didn't want to do anything. I just want to lay in the bed. But, when you're trying to do something that's really, really difficult, you have to go beyond where you want to go.
Right.
You have to get out of your comfort zone. You have to just go. I think I'm just a little crazy. Because I just try. My mom always told me try hard.
But
and I just
then,
give all I got.
like before that, because I'm just trying to get a few things in, because I know we'll run out of time in a few minutes. I got to get in there and close everything out. But maybe we can talk a little bit about the Faith and Freedom, Coalition conference that we went to.
That was unreal. And we don't even have time to talk about Uncle Sonny.
I know.
About how we've been able to communicate with them and persuade people to vote their values. I am pro-black all the way. I'm pro-community all the way. I just happen to believe that if communities are out of balance, if to raise the level of one community, you raise the whole daggone boat. That's why I say what's good for the black community is good for the community. I don't mean to take anything away from anybody. It's just about making things better.
Right. And then I know you started the show off with talking about me being a Democrat the majority of my life. And what made me change was when I realized that I was not voting my values. That's the main thing that made me change. When I really stopped and thought about pro-life and what that meant, and I realized how brainwashed I was, because we sit there and say a woman's right to choose, but then we don't stop to think that, now that I understand what's going on, to me it's just murder. It's murder to kill innocent babies.
Well, if you put God, to me, life can be simple, life can be complicated, depending on, if you put God first and use your common sense, it's really not terribly difficult. It's difficult going through the actions you have to take, but the path you have to take and the guidelines that can help you along that path are not too complicated.
Right, and we talk about people going to church and saying that they believe in God, but at the same time, they don't vote their values because the Republican Party is better aligned with my values and my beliefs. And when I realized that, then I knew I had been voting for the wrong people. And then also, I watched so many people I grew up with become so dependent on the government that they can't do for themselves. They can't do for themselves because they want everything given to them. And that's frightening to me.
Well, we've lost we've lost the idea and the concept of work as a value. And people think they're supposed to feel good all the time. Nope.
And it's not easy. You have to work for it, and it's a lot of work.
But again, it's been nice having you on the show.
Well, I still got a few minutes.
Oh, we do? Okay. I always get the time mixed up.
Probably in a couple of minutes, then I need to get in there and start shutting everything down. I'm playing a dual role today. I'm a guest and a producer, so it feels kind of good. I guess we'll have to do this again. I
don't know. We'll see what people say. They're probably mad at me.
Why?
Next time I may come with a Halloween mask or something crazy. But I just think that I just wish that we as a community would begin to understand that we're all one and we're all human and we need to work together. We can get along. Some people don't want to get along. I know Democrats shooting at people and all that. They got all kind of foolishness going on.
It's crazy.
But
right
some
now.
people don't want to get along. But I believe that the better part of people can get along if they wish.
And we're proof of that, right? With what we do, with our outreach efforts.
Well, my outreach efforts are. It's kind of like a crusade for me. It's kind of like, can this be done? It's kind of like, can you get out of Lincoln Heights? Yeah. And you just gotta believe. It's like I said earlier.
Right.
If you believe in yourself and trust God and give all you got, He'll break you off. I just believe that. It's always been that way. It hadn't always been pretty. It hadn't always been easy.
Right.
I'm not saying that I haven't had some rough times. There's going to be some rough times. If I keep living, I'll see some more rough times.
Well,
But
you can announce some.
I have the confidence that I can make it through that. Got to announce the man in me.
Announce some upcoming things while I go and
I
close
got
it
to
out.
announce the man in me cookout
Bye, everybody.
this coming Saturday. My guest is leaving me. I guess I'm abandoned to my own devices.
That's scary.
I'll be all right, though. I want to thank you for joining me today. It's been a pleasure sharing some of my experiences and my wife's experiences with you. I hope that it can serve as a source of enlightenment and enrichment for your mind and thinking, and help you evaluate your perspectives and their suitability for you, and how those perspectives can best suit you, your family, and your loved ones. Again, I want to thank you for joining me. It's always a pleasure to be able to try to share what little I may know. Thank you and good evening.